Steve Garvey in the studio. Steve, 10-time All-Star, National League MVP, 1974, World Series ring with the Dodgers, of course. So many years between the Dodgers and the Padres. 17, 18, how many years, Steve?
Just about 18 and a half.
18 and a half years.
I was 6'3" when I started, and I'm about 5'9" now. So.
And where do you rank in terms of the Iron Man, most consecutive games or games played in Major League Baseball?
Well, number one in the National League, 1207, and number four all-time behind Ripken and Gehrig and Everett Scott, which not too many people had ever heard of. But he was a first baseman, too. So, take a lot of pride in it. I think it makes a statement for my commitment and passion for the game. And, you're not always going out there 100%. There were times when I had the flu, hairline fractures, I had hyperextended elbow, migraine headaches. But you go out and you try to make it happen, and a lot of times adrenaline kicks in and you're able to do it, except for the migraine headaches. It was interesting. Lou Gehrig ultimately ended because of Lou Gehrig's disease. But a couple of times he had lumbago, which was very painful lower back. Mm-hmm. And twice he got up to the plate, got on base, hit the ball in the gap, and by the time he got to second or third, he had to come out. He could barely stand up. And with migraine headaches, twice that happened. Same thing, first time up in the gap, get to third base, and the world's spinning around. So, but I was fortunate. You're in God's hands. Anything serious, you can't do that. And my streak ended on a slide into home plate in San Diego, and trying to slide around, put my hand back, caught Pascual Perez's heel, and tore the ligament in my thumb, and that was it.
What year of your career was that in?
That was in 83.
So you'd been 14 years, or I'm trying to think of how many years in for you.
Well,
when your streak ended.
In the streak, 7.5 years. So 7.5 years, I played in every game. Straight.
For the first?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm trying to figure out the math. So what year did you enter the league?
Entered the league, my first day was September 1st of 1969. It's when they usually call up 4 or 5 guys. So
you missed a game or two before the streak began.
Yeah.
That's where I was confused about. All right, just trying to get clarity on the
streak started around 76, I would think, and ended in 1983, the second week of the season. Ironically, I was with the Padres then. It ended, well, not only the Padres, but when I made the transition back, I broke the record, the National League record, at the Saturday night of the first trip between the Dodgers and Padres that year at Dodger Stadium.
So that was nice.
Yeah, even though I was a Padre, and I had looked at the schedule, and I said, if I can keep it going until that end of the second week, I will tie the record on Friday night and break the record on Saturday. And it worked just that way. And I was able to thank the fans.
Well, you're a very beloved character as a Dodger. And sometimes when people come back to their former team, there's a lot of boos. I don't imagine for Steve Garvey there was. I imagine the crowd treated you very nicely when you came back to Dodger Stadium.
Well, there's always going to be, and this was a very small smattering of boos. My first time up, the first inning, was batting third. And the hype that night, that Friday night, tying the record that night was tremendous. All the media was there. And ladies and gentlemen, now batting, the great voice of the Dodgers, Steve Garvey. And there was a little bit of spattering, but then it started to raise in the cheering, in the standing ovation. And it was really emotional. I was standing on the on deck. There's a picture of me with my bat raised, for the fans. And I got up to home plate. I think Doug Harvey was the umpire that night. And I was looking out. And the moment of reality when you've changed teams, especially for me, was that first moment where I stood at home plate and I looked out and all those guys on the field had Dodger uniforms.
Right.
And I had to step back. And Mike Scioscia was the catcher. And Harvey, and they both realized it. And Harvey, took his brush and came around and kind of cleaned off home plate.
Bought you a little time.
Bought me about 45 seconds. And then I gathered myself and stood up there. And I think it was Jerry Royce, threw a low 96-mile-an-hour fastball on the outside corner. And I realized it's time to go to work.
As Lasorda I've dealt with a little bit. Had some interactions with him. Big personality. Funny. As a matter of fact, I don't think I told you the story in the times we hung out a little bit with Suzanne Summers and Alan Hamill, but there's a funny thing that happened, which is Lasorda was supposed to be Grand Marshal of a parade in Louisiana, New Orleans, and a big New Orleans parade, right? And at the last second, he dropped out. He had an illness or didn't feel right or whatever it was. But it was a Mardi Gras parade, and he dropped out. So a last second phone call comes in to me and Kimmel. Lasorda's out. Can you guys take over as Grand Marshal for the parade that Lasorda dropped out on? And we said, yeah. And Kimmel's a big fan of yours. He was a fan of the Dodgers and Lasorda and everything. Yeah. And I think we were filming something. We're going to go film some man show stuff in New Orleans or something. So we said, yeah, we can do it. So we took over. The problem is all the medallions that they made, all the beads with the big head on it was Lasorda.
Right, yeah.
And it just had a big picture of Lasorda's big head on this medallion and these beads. And so when we got onto the float, they just handed me and Jimmy a box of 200 of these things. And they said, you throw them out to everybody. And I was like, okay. So we threw them to everyone, and as the parade is going by, you'd see people grab the beads and like cheer and look, and then they'd look down and they go, what? And they look back up, and we're going past them, and I was going,
at 10 feet behind.
I don't know why Tommy Lasorda's
Did you look at the
head.
other side, the back side of the medallion? It was a bowl of pasta.
No one had any context for why Lasorda's head was on the Man Show guy's beads, but he was such a personality, and he was your skipper the entire time you were a Dodger? Or
no, when I signed in 1968, I went to Ogden, Utah, which was the Rookie League. It was out of Michigan State, so it was early June. So what happened, Rookie League was about 60 games from the middle of June through September, and we had arguably the greatest draft in history. We had Bobby Valentine, Bill Buckner, Ron Say, Davey Lopes, Pashorek. We had 9 guys in one draft.
The Dodgers did.
Yeah, that averaged over 9 years in the major leagues, which is truly phenomenal. But Buckner and Pashorek and I, along with Valentine, went to Ogden, and we found out that the reason they sent us there was they had this jovial manager who had just won 2 championships in the Pioneer League. And so I get there, and I come in from Tampa, Florida, and most of the guys had already gotten there, and I walk into the Ben Lomond Hotel, which is kind of like the plaza of Ogden, Utah. And I'm walking down the aisle, and I'm going towards the desk, and I see this guy and about 5, 6 guys with him, look like my age. And as I get closer, he turns around, and he comes up, and he sticks out his hand. He says, "You must be the Garv." And I went, "Yeah." And he said, "Son, my name's Tom Lasorda. Your life's changed forever." And I thought, oh, my gosh, they just signed professionally. What does he mean? Well, from that point on, he became, and I've always said, the P.T. Barnum of my life and of the Dodgers. It was a 3-ring circus, on the field, off the field, in the media. But he had such a passion for the game and taught us that we were playing for the front of the jersey and not the back of the jersey, which I've always used that phrase because it's so true in determining who's a teammate and who's really playing for himself. But went from there 2 years later, a year and a half, went to Spokane. By the way, won the championship that year, his three-peat. Up and down in 70, the down was Spokane. That team was voted the greatest minor league team in history, and Tom was manager of that. And then by 74, he finally got up to coaching third base under Walter Alston. And then in 77, he took over the job for the first time.
Yeah, such a personality. I don't even know if we leave room for guys with those kinds of personalities today because people are buttoned up. They're scared of social media. Every step is a misstep, and less is more. And things can be taken out of context and what have you. You know, I mean, guys smoked in the locker room and drank beer and said whatever they wanted, you know. And
chewing tobacco, spitting on each other's shoes. I mean, that was the boys' club back then.
And so it bred these personalities that we've seen all throughout sports, the Oakland Raiders guys and, you know, Howard Cosell and these big personalities. And we're now in some sort of sterilized world where we've decided that that was wrong and we need to amend our ways. And with it, we've lost the personalities. I feel that way. Like I'm really trying to think of the world used to be sort of littered with these guys, and they just don't seem to exist anymore. I mean, Billy Martin and guys like that.
Yeah. And Adam, I think you agree with me that, you know, money changes everything. And once the game began to grow, and you know, our first TV was black and white, and I remember coming home from school, rushing home. All the games were day games back in the World Series in the 50s. And coming through the door and seeing the last out of the perfect game that was thrown and going, wow, you know, that's amazing, and seeing the excitement. And then, of course, and my dad and two other gentlemen started the second Little League in Tampa, so I was just about to begin my first Little League. But I was also a bat boy for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Dad drove a Buster Greyhound. And in spring training of 1956, he came home one night and he said, "You want to skip school?" And I said,
because they'd be in Vero Beach back then?
In Vero Beach, but they came over to Tampa for 3 days every year to play the Yankees and the Reds and Detroit. So that next day, picked up the team from Tampa International Airport, took them to St. Pete, played the Yankees. I got a chance to bat boy, and everybody loved Mickey Mantle. Chris was in awe, but these were the boys of summer. The Dodgers had finally beaten the Yankees in the fall of '55 for the first time after 6 attempts. So I was actually bat boying for the world champion Brooklyn Dodgers, and sat next to Campanella and Hodges, and Jackie Robinson literally sat on my lap, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, son, are you okay?" And I looked up and I said, "Yes, sir." I'm thinking, Monday show and tell, nobody's going to believe this.
What was, do you remember the amount of your first major league contract? Talk about how money has changed.
Oh, yeah. At my first major league contract maybe was $8,000.
$8,000?
Yeah. Yeah, that was...
$8,000 a year?
Yeah, $8,000 probably in 1970, jumped up to $12,000 in 71, maybe about 1872. And you got to remember, I was a wild arm third baseman, so there wasn't a big demand. So I was fighting to stay in the majors. I was starting to really grow as a hitter, but I had a shoulder separation playing football at Michigan State, so I wasn't quite throwing the same. And but I was starting to hit in and out of the lineup at third. And then 73 comes along, and Ron Say, makes the team, and he was an exceptional third baseman.
The Penguin.
So I end up going to the outfield. I'm a wild arm third baseman and a short arm outfielder. And all of a sudden, I'm a guy without a position. And there were rumor talks about, trading me to Montreal. And but I kept coming out 2:30 in the afternoon, working on my hitting, working on my fielding. And there's always a pivotal point in our life. It could be a relationship, it could be a day, it could be an accomplishment. So on June 23rd of 1973, we'd been struggling against left-handed pitching. I had been pinch hitting and was leading the league. Everything was coming together, hitting. Still didn't have a position. And the first game against the Reds, that was the beginning of the great rivalry in the 70s and 80s.
The Big Red Machine.
The Big Red Machine. And Freddie Norman, a little lefty, threw a two-hitter. I got one of the hits. And I'm sitting in my locker between games. You get about 30 minutes. And
between doubleheaders.
Between doubleheaders, you get your stale turkey sandwich with no dressing, and you're sitting there, and I'm feeling good that I got a hit at least. And Walter Alston starts to come by, and he stops, and he turns around, he looks at me, and he said, "Do you ever play first?" And I said, "Oh, sure, yeah." Well, I played one game in Little League and one game in AAA. Had a slightly pulled hamstring, and the dugout was the closest position was first. And he said, "Well, get a glove. You're starting tonight at first. Get some hits and, don't trip over the bag." And I borrowed a mitt, took the bat boy out, and started playing catch quick to get used to the glove. And the
Someone
first
else's
inning,
first base glove.
yeah,
Right.
and somebody with a much narrower hand, so I got my fingers in. And the first inning, second batter, ball goes in the hole. Billy Russell comes up throwing in the dirt, and I go and dig it out. Ball sticks in my glove. We get the guy. I think, okay. First time up, get a double, drive in 2 runs. A couple innings later, Davey Lopes comes in, takes the barehanded, throws it in the dirt, backhand it, like I know what I'm doing.
At first.
And ended up with 2 hits, 3 RBIs. We win the game. And Walter Alston comes by afterwards, doesn't stop, but he comes by, and we hear, you're in there tomorrow. And I look at Steve Yeager and I say, he's talking to you, Yeager, or me? He says, I think he's talking to you. And I was in there the next day. It was a Sunday. We went on the road, played every day, and that was the beginning of Steve Garvey, the first baseman that played 15 and a half years that people know today. And I always say, I do a lot of speaking, if I hadn't said, oh, sure, I can do that, then I probably wouldn't be with you today. My career would have probably languished for a little while, gone to another team. But carpe diem, seize the moment, had confidence, and there you go.
Yeah, and, there's always an element of the ball that took the hop that Russell barehanded, or Lopes barehanded, and Russell threw the, one hopper, to one hop, backhand, front hand. It's possible you missed that ball 3 out of 5 times or 7 times or something. There's a little bounce. There's a little luck to it sometimes. We'll never find out if you don't seize the day. I mean, you gotta get there.
That was my first bad hops, and they end up in my glove. So,
That's someone else's glove.
Yeah.
Not even yours.
And not even mine. I one that fit. But you have to believe, and throughout my life and my career, I do believe there's a certain destiny, and that destiny is usually because you have faith. You have faith in God, but you have faith in yourself. And that if you get up every day and you believe there's a purpose in life, and you understand that you've been given certain gifts and that you need to work hard, that good things are going to happen. But if you think you're owed things in life or that you should be given them, that's usually when you end up 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago looking back and saying, if I just woulda. Right.
Yeah, to me, it's academic. You get up and you try, and it works or it doesn't work. I think people get mired too much in talking about, how'd you know? It's always a question. How'd you know it was going to work? I was like, I didn't know. I worked. That's what I do. You just get up and work. Well, if I knew it was going to work, if anyone knew, I've never bought a lottery ticket, but if you told me that one was a winner, then I would go buy a lottery ticket. But I don't know that, and that's how it works. You're not allowed to know. You're not supposed to know, and you're not going to get rewarded if those are the rules. The rules are you go try, and then that's it. And by the way, if it doesn't work out, you still tried, and I would say that worked out.
Right.
You trying is it working out. I don't know. I've said to people many times, I go, who do you know who's really good at their job and works really hard, who's out of work? Because people say to me all the time, there's a lot of people out of work, a lot of people struggling out there. I go, who's good? Yeah. Who's good, puts in a maximum effort, and tries real hard at their job and can't find a job? Because I've never met that person.
No, because life's about making adjustments. And if you...
An effort.
Yeah, and if you have any common sense at all or a sense of, in order to make this work, it's not always going to be the first time. Was I lucky in digging the balls out of the dirt? Absolutely. But I also had gone out and practiced day after day after day and was a pretty good third baseman fielding the ball. And obviously, I ended up with 4 Gold Gloves and 193 games without an error and all these things. But that I kept adjusting and kept trying. That's the key. And I think God says to us, I put you on this earth to keep trying, make a difference. Don't give up. In baseball terms, keep swinging.
Well, let's shift to politics for a moment. So, last I spoke to you, you were felt pretty good about your chances for the Senate. California, the election is held, by the way, on November 5th out here in California. There's, I've lived in California my whole life. There's something wrong going on around here. Yeah. It's not your father's California. It's a different California. I was saying to Dr. Drew the other day, I was saying, look, I was talking about Tom Bradley. So we're talking about diversity. Sure. I said, we had a black mayor 50 years ago. 50 years ago, the mayor of California was black, and mayor of Los Angeles is black. And then I paused and I said, I don't even know if he was a Republican or a Democrat, because I didn't care.
Right.
Because he just did a good job. Sure. And that was that.
He's a good man.
He was a good man, and there was a sort of pragmatism. You know what I mean? Hey, we're running a city. This is how we have to do it.
Right.
Now it's turned into something I don't recognize, and I'm not sure why the people are going along for the ride and when they'll hit their saturation level. But I feel like they're getting to the saturation level where they went, you know what? It's time for a change.
Yeah, well, I say, and I'm not a politician. I'm a guy who's blessed, to reach the ultimate level in my given profession. God gave me the skills for that. I took that into the community, building businesses, working with charities, trying to make a difference. And then I woke up at 75, last May, turned the TV on and saw this snarkiness in Washington. Career politicians were visibly attacking each other down party lines. They weren't. They were running for a job and not representing the people. They were talking down to the people. You and I are the people. We're the residents. We remember when California was the heartbeat of America, and it's not right now. Like you said, it's not your father's California. And I looked around to try to see if, there was somebody I could support that had similar feelings and beliefs that I do. And in this state, it's a one-party state. Anybody that's conservative or moderate like myself is told there's no way you can win in this state. There's absolutely no way. The ideology here, the number of percentage of Democrats registered to Republicans is too wide. You'd really have to get all the independents and the undecided and maybe a disenfranchised Democrat here or there. So I said to my wife, honey, let's run for the U.S. Senate. And being a good wife, she turned over again the other way. It had woken her up. And then she turned back and she said, don't you think you're a little young? And we started to laugh. And I said, well, I've had this wonderful, great life with the love of my life and our children. Maybe I can just make a difference. Maybe I can start a movement that people will stand up and like the movie Network, and Peter Finch is on there as the old anchor.
Mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore.
Mad as hell, not going to take it.
Yeah.
And it took 3 months. Walk around this great state, talk to people up and down, east and west. By the way, you should have reminded me, it's 800 miles north and south and 250 east and west.
Wow.
And looked them in the eye, like you and I are talking now, and asked them about their life. And invariably, 15, 20 minutes of how difficult their life is, what a challenge it is, how they get up in the morning and mom goes to the kitchen table and tries to figure out the menu for the week and can they afford it. And dad tries to fill up the gas tank. And I've gone to gas stations at 6:30 in the morning and watched the hardworking, people of California who come in to fill up their tank and seeing people use $10 instead of buying 10 gallons of gas. That's
right.
Where we are today. You start to see more homeless in the streets, and not only homeless, but people who don't live there, who have come from other countries. And that you've learned that they're illegal. Homelessness in places that you never thought homeless would be, whether it's down Santa Monica Boulevard, the west side of L.A. or wherever, or go to the inner city where there's 30 square blocks of homeless there. And I said, maybe, just maybe, with my voice and recognition and playing in front of millions of people know me pretty well, that it's a narrow path, but let's see if we can take that path and get people to stand up and get engaged. And the other thing, get them to register. Get people to register to use the single greatest currency we have as members of our society, and that's the opportunity to vote. And recently we had 5 months of record-breaking registration in every county in California, which I'd like to think I had something to do with that. But we're getting people to stand up, and of course the press dispelled the sole ball player running for office at 75.
Sure, the press.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know what? We shocked everybody. We got through the primary, literally beat My opponent, Adam Schiff, by 300,000 in the temporary seat election. There were 2 elections, 2 votes. People were confused. And then the general, literally tied for that. But we knew when you aggregate all the votes and the number of Democrats and Republicans would probably be 15, 20% behind. And we were, even though we did that well, mano a mano. And now we're making great progress, and we've narrowed that down to almost single digit. And by the time it's all said and done, November 5th, I think people will know and finally realize that they needed somebody with common sense and compassion who believes in consensus building, bringing people together, and that divisiveness. And my opponent, and you talked about this divisiveness, how it's imploding this country. He's voting 97, 98% down party line. And I said, I
Adam Schiff
pledge never to vote that anywhere near that, because that means I'm not listening. I don't want to work together. I don't want to compromise one iota for the good of the people. And I think any of us need to do that if we want this state and our country to build what we expect of it to build.
Yeah, well, I think we can all agree that the state is going in the wrong direction. And I've experienced it because I've lived here my entire life. And my family's from here as well, from sort of like third generation at least. And there's not many people that have been here the entire time. That's funny because 2 of my closest friends are attorney Mark Garagos and Dr. Drew, and we're the only 3 I know who are born here and been here our entire lives. And we have conversations.
I'm from Florida,
where we go, yeah, man, what is going on around here? And there's a kind of, we're missing a pragmatism, and we've replaced it with some sort of euphoric thought about what could be. It's like when Kamala Harris talks about what could be without the burden of what was or something. It's a bunch of word salad. No one knows what it means. We need to get back. I always say diet and exercise. And then people go, well, what about me because I have a thyroid condition? I go, diet and exercise. Well, Jenny Craig just came out with an all-fudge breakfast bar. I go, just diet and exercise. Just try it. Yeah. Just try diet and exercise. Right. I'll bet you're going to lose weight.
Don't complicate it.
It's not that complicated. It's just work and focus and a pragmatism and an approach to problems that's not pie in the sky. We're in some insane world where we have politicians blaming Toyota for catalytic converter thefts because they make it too easy to steal by welding this thing onto the bottom of their car. That's pure insanity. It has nothing to do, it's the opposite of diet and exercise. And at some point, if you ignore pragmatism, if you sort of ignore whatever the most boring stuff is, the hard work, your word is your bond, he's the first guy in the office and the last guy to leave, and whatever, the diet and exercise of life, the stuff your dad told you, the stuff your grandfather told you, the stuff every coach has told you, it's the front of the jersey that you're playing for, not the name on the back, these kind of aphorisms that seem old-fashioned to all the idiots who are running this place into the ground. At some point, you have to get back to that because it's the only thing that works.
Sure.
And we never, L.A. and Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, absolutely.
God,
we attack him frequently because without law and order, every society fails. Mm-hmm. And right now, we have a crisis of law and order. We're not supporting the police like we should. My opposition wants to defund the police. They want to close jails and prisons, and they want to erase the border. So how can you survive as a society or expect to grow back to that cohesiveness we're talking to unless you enforce these things, unless you have a free market society, supply side economics, right?
Well,
the harder you work, you should be able to get ahead, right? Reach for the moon. If you fall short, you'll be a star, right? You've talked about that. The key is it gets back to, we've got to have respect for each other, number one. I talk about civility. There's not a lot of civility in this world we live in. Not a lot of respect for the presence of other people. God gave us free will and choice. Let's respect that, right? So we've got to get back to that. And like we talked about before, the ability to disagree, but come together with a solution that's best for all the people. And right now it's so divided. I'm more concerned, and then we've been to the Hoover Institute, and we've got so much information on the world and peace through strength, and we need to be a deterrent. And although we're spread thin now and never at greater danger, I think we're good. I'm more concerned about implosion from within. I'm more concerned about this country being dissected by an evil force that wants to deconstruct the Constitution, that wants to pack the Supreme Court, right? That wants to do away with the amendments. So, if we get back to the civility and discourse, I think it's a big step, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, it's interesting because I oftentimes wonder out loud, and I talk to Dr. Drew about this a lot, what is the plan? Because I grew up with a kind of front row seat to this. My mom was kind of a hippie, and her mom was, my grandmother was sort of half communist and half whatever. And they would, and it was great for me because I just got a front row seat to it. And I was like, oh, this doesn't work at all. This doesn't work. And so I'm going to go out and do whatever you guys say to do, I'll just do the opposite. And then that'll be sure road to success for me. But I heard it a lot in the 70s, especially. They'd go, oh, we love this country. And then there'd be a but. And then they'd explain what we did to the indigenous people or slavery or whatever it is. And then there'd be, we love this country, but, and more discussions about how bad this country is. And at a certain point, I was like, I don't think you love this country. And I don't think you would do it. You just spoke highly of your wife, who's a dear woman who I spent some time with a couple of weeks back when we were hanging out at Alan Hamill's house. But if you came in here, Steve Garvey, and you said, I love my wife, she's a dear woman, but she's a horrible cook. I'd say, oh, okay. And then next time I saw you, you'd go, I love my wife very much, but she drinks a lot. And she's a little theatrical when she drinks. And about the fifth time you did the but, I'd go, I don't think you love your wife that much. You keep saying you love your wife.
I'm make sure Candace isn't listening to this.
We had a chance to talk while you were using the bathroom.
You know her. We're just here to serve, by the way, you and I. So once we realize that, the world's better for us guys.
But what I'm saying is I do not think you love this country that much, just like I wouldn't think you loved your wife that much. And these politicians that are constantly and seem to inhabit the left talking about how, they love the country, they love the Constitution, they love the rule of law, they love everything, but, and then the explanation. I'm starting to wonder if they do. And then I'm also kind of wondering what the end game is, because I understand you going, well, there are too many men of color who've committed low-level drug offenses that are incarcerated for extended periods of time. Like, I get that. But that's not what you're working on. You're working on chaos. You're working on turning cities into Sodom and Gomorrah. This is not working out. So what is the plan? Like, what is the George Soros plan? What is the progressive plan? Is it, I'm going to make a better country through all this policy that never works? Or is there some sort of evil chaos theory that we're unaware of because they'll never come out and say it?
Yeah. I think a George Soros sits by himself, and what I've heard, he's a very lonely man. Even with all that wealth, money doesn't buy you peace of mind. It doesn't buy you the right to tear down the greatest country in the world. And I think a lot of times people say, "Oh, these things are great." And back in their mind, but is there something better? Well, you just have to travel the world. And I just came back from Israel because I thought it was important for me, not only as a person but as a candidate, to listen to what happened on October 7th and to what's transpired since then to the Jewish people and what's happening in the United States in terms of attack on the Jewish people and anti-Semitism. And I think you need to do that. You need to do a deeper study and deeper dive in all the buts, right? And to realize if you do travel around the world and you see a small country, 9 million people, you can put 8 Israels into California, I think. There's more people in LA County, I think, than Israel. That these people constantly are under the tension of the Middle East wanting to completely wipe them off the map. I mean, the attack at 6:45 on October 7th was a crime against humanity. To walk around a kibbutz that was in one of the thrusts that morning and to see the devastation of this 800-person community that was all for one, one for all, grow their own food and so forth, to go into rooms that were completely burned down. And there was a safe room in every one of these places. To see where the Hamas had broken the door open and thrown a hand grenade in with people inside, 6, 8, 10 people. The devastation. To go in and see couches that were burned, but to see flesh on those couches from how Hamas had attacked these people viciously. So then you go 15 minutes down the road where Nova, where the music festival with young men and women were, to see 3,500 young men and women from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. enjoying music. It would be like Coachella in a smaller, in proportion. And all of a sudden see that Hamas had come in with their trucks and just killed 360 of them, outright murdered them, 200 hostages. I mean, to have this country still have the spirit to fight and then to react and attack Hamas in Gaza, and to see over these 7, 8 months now that they've pretty much secured and forced Hamas down to the south and secured, that'll be secured in a couple of weeks. But that to know that after that's secured, the presence is there. In the north, the northern border, Hezbollah is sitting there ready to annihilate Israel. And that for the Jewish people, and for families and presence in LA in this country, it's our responsibility, and they're our greatest ally in the Middle East, to stand by them. And I said this the first day. I stand by Israel yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I stand next to them for their needs. But I could never, as an ally, tell them that they couldn't do whatever they need to do to protect their sovereignty and their people. And to tell them that they should stand down to cease fire is unconscionable. Having an ally or 9/11 tell us that we can't go after enemies after the devastation they performed on us. So we have to get back to standing up for this country, standing up for what's right, standing next to our allies, and to let the world know, we're the greatest democracy in the world. But we need the support of the people coming together again as one in realization that this greatest country in the world can't be imploded. We have to start standing up, like talking about this race, and coming together again.
Ethos. Well, you could run into a burning building or fight a bear. You'd do it all to protect your family, right? Well, I don't know. I guess the scary should be a burning bear that you'd have to fight. I don't know, combining my two fears. Anyway, you don't have to. That's the good news. Protect your loved ones with Ethos. Affordable life insurance. Quick, easy, all online, with no medical exams. Just answer a few health questions for a quote and apply for coverage at ethos.com/Adam. Life insurance is something you need when you're a responsible adult and you have people that you love and you want them to be taken care of. So I know responsible adults listen to this show, so I'm counting on you. See your rate in just minutes. Term life policies start as low as $10 a month. Personalized coverage to your family's needs, like helping your kids through college, your spouse with a mortgage, and more. Affordable options from 10 to 30 years worth of coverage. It's Ethos, right, Dawson?
Protect your family today. Get up to $2 million in term life insurance coverage in 10 minutes with Ethos. Just answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethoslife.com/Adam. That's ETHOS life.com/Adam.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. Friendly, helpful service and parts and knowledge. All the stuff you need to maintain and repair your automobile. I've been with these guys for a million years. I always wear my O'Reilly hat when I'm walking around. People think I'm smart. And I am, because I use O'Reilly. Used to use the one up on Foothill in La Crescenta back in the day. I get my parts. I like to do it, hands-on. They got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online. Never have to worry if you're in a jam. The team at O'Reilly Auto Parts can test your battery for free in or out of the car. If it needs to be replaced, they'll help you find it and just the right battery that'll work in your vehicle. Also, windshield wipers replaced, brake lights fixed, quick service. They'll help you find the right part and point you in the right direction of a shop that can help you install this stuff if you need it. They're professional parts people. That's what they are. So if you're a do-it-yourselfer, you can go in and do it, or you can go online and get your stuff. At O'Reilly, it's easy. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit them online, O'Reilly.com/Adam. Yeah, let them know I sent you. O'ReillyAuto.com, O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam. Morgan and Morgan. Life can be crazy sometimes, and one person's negligence can result in another's settlement. That's right. So if you've ever been injured, check out Morgan and Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. Over 100 offices nationwide and more than 1,000 lawyers. More than $20 billion recovered for 500,000 plus clients. So that's big. Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting to get you the full and fair compensation. Going on the road and doing stand-up every weekend, well, that can be hard, but submitting an injury claim with Morgan & Morgan, that's easy. So if you got a situation, you need to talk to a pro. You talk to Morgan & Morgan, right, Dawson?
If you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/Adam or dial #law, #529 from your cell phone. That's forthepeople.com/Adam or #law, #529 from your cell. This is a paid advertisement.
When you hear the members of the squad going, oh, I'm a big fan of the Israeli people, but you have to understand what they're doing to the Palestinians is nothing short of slavery, and you go, but, you know what I mean? It's like, you're not anti-Semitic. Israel's an ally. You stand with Israel, but everything that comes out of your mouth is just an attack on Israel.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think there's a big problem, and I think, and like I said, I've experienced it being around these people. They don't understand evil, and they don't understand they're bad people. They think people are misunderstood, and they think they're forced or compelled to act a certain way. We stopped it, but we used to say a while ago, we created all these terrorists. It's us who created them, and every person in prison is just there because they were hungry or they had some bad circumstances or they were fatherless or whatever it is. It's like, now you don't have to go up and punch elderly women and steal their purse. And I used to be poor. I was poor my whole life. My family was poor. I never punched anybody and took their belongings.
Blame them.
Yeah,
right.
You don't have to be. No, that's called a bad person. There are bad people. They want the Jews dead. It's called the Middle East. They're anti-Semitic. That's why they're doing it. It's not because Israel has taken the fine, hardworking people from Palestine and subjugated them to X, Y, and Z. But there is a big problem in that they can't wrap their head around it. So what they say is, look, seeing armed police officers walk through these troubled or these neighborhoods with African Americans, all that does is agitate and anger the people there. We need community ambassadors, people that go through so they know that these people are their friends, and they don't mean them any harm. And that just creates more crime because they don't understand humans. They don't understand motivation. And they also don't understand that there's evil and evil needs to be killed.
So remember the saying, everything you need to know you learned in kindergarten?
Yes.
Right. Well, and I've learned this. I've thought about education in America over the last couple of generations and how far left it's gone. And we did this past weekend as we talked to the people. what are the solutions? And ironically, the solutions were education. Once they secure Gaza, there's going to be no decisions for a generation, but there can be the beginning of education on to the difference between right and wrong. I think the big thing in our country here is that because it's gone so far left in education, especially in college and universities, that professors are teaching the students what to think instead of how to think. And I think that goes for any country that's in conflict, that all of a sudden can be stabilized. The best way to eventually turn that around is with education, and the same way with this country. If we start to tell and show our students, and this is how you think, and you'll make a better decision with good information. They're not getting good information when they're rioting on these campuses now with anti-Semitism and these things.
I think we're up against a fundamental problem with education. And I'll be very curious to get your head on this and what we can do about it. But I just saw a story that the Department of Education in the building, the big giant federal building in D.C., was only about 17% inhabited. And they want people to come back and show up and come to work. Right. And the people who work in the Department of Education in Washington, D.C. do not want to come to work. They like working from their bathrobe and sweatpants in their apartment. And I started to notice, and especially during COVID, and my kids' school was shut down for a year and a half, and I was arguing with the teachers and getting called, racist and elitist or whatever by the unions when I was saying, go back to work. And then it started to dawn on me that I don't think they want to go back to work, not because of COVID. They don't like working. And I will say this. If you gave me the choice between coming to work every day or staying home every day and getting paid, I would stay home and get paid every day, just like most Americans. Not Steve Garvey. Steve Garvey would get up, he'd make his Windsor knot, he'd put his jacket on, and he would leave the house.
Am I overdressed today, by the way?
No. That's how you dress.
Love the blazer and the look.
No, when I think about you, this is what I picture you in. What I'm saying is that not many people were MLB Iron Man. Most of us will be tempted by our weaker angels. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And when you say to people, look, get up and go to work, they go, fine. And you go, I'm staying home. Well, then you're not getting paid. Then they get up and they go to work. But if you said you can stay home and get paid, then most people around the world would opt to stay home. I understand it. But I found out also, and it started to dawn on me, that almost every time my kids would come back from a break, Easter break, Christmas break, whatever the extended break was, even summer, I would, be Sunday night. And I'd go, well, it's back to the salt mines tomorrow because break time is over. And they go, we don't have school tomorrow. And I'd go, well, wait a minute. Christmas is over. New Year's is over. This is Monday. You're going to go back to school. And they go, no, we go back Tuesday. I go, well, why Tuesday? It's a teacher-free day or whatever. And I go, so you guys take the Monday off after the vacation. Okay, you don't like going to work. You don't like it. That's fine. Admit it. But you don't like it. You like kids, but you love staying home and getting paid. And then I realized, who is attracted to this as a profession? And there's a percentage of people who go, I love kids and I would like to mold youth. But for most, it's basically the only version of socialism that we essentially have going in this country. I shouldn't say the only version, but what I'm saying is it's a little island of socialism. And what do I mean by that? Well, look, you're not going to get rich, but they can't fire you. You'll be in a union. You'll get paid the same as the one who works their ass off and does the homework every night and shows up early and Tuesday. You all get paid the same, whatever the effort is. Okay. And you get 3 months off for the summer. I mean, think about the concept of just not working for 3 months and all the maximum benefits of the Christmas holiday, the Easter holiday. And when the dust settles on the year, you will have worked less days than you would have worked. And roofers and plumbers can't really say that. And so it attracts, and this isn't even a values judgment. It attracts people who go, I generally like that lifestyle. Like, yeah, I'm not going to get rich. I'm not going to hang out my own shingle. I'm not going to have employees. I'm not going to go out there and fight it out in the real world, but I have security. And I have benefits, and I have a union taking care of me, and so I'm attracted to this profession. Okay, so now you have a whole bunch of like-minded people who got attracted to this profession. Well, what are they going to say? What's their politics? Well, we know what their politics are. They're in a teachers' union in Southern California, in Los Angeles. We know how they vote. They take their money and they give it to Gavin Newsom so he can side with them when they need things down the road. So if you were, let's just say you replaced all this and you just said they're all vegan. Every teacher's a vegan. How long before they started sort of passing down, they see little Tommy and he's eating a ham sandwich and they go, meat is murder, Tommy. Perhaps
you get a C for that, Tommy.
Perhaps a little tofu. You might enjoy a little more. Well, yes, of course it would bleed. It would bleed into it. So you have an inherent problem with schools, which is if it attracted, let's just say, we'll flip the script. It attracted entrepreneurs, guys who started up small businesses, guys of that nature. Well, if it attracted that, then they would be patriotic small business owners. Well, then that's what they would start passing that along to the kids, right? Sure. But it doesn't. It attracts this other group. So now this other group starts a slow, kind of quiet indoctrination that they don't think is an indoctrination. It's just sort of how they think. And it used to start at the college level, but it's not at the college level. It's in high school and junior high, and there's all the diversity training and all this stuff. Right. So there is a math problem that we're up against, and it's that. It's that this is who it attracts. It attracts 26-year-old women who think like Bernie Sanders and now have to impart their wisdom to 9-year-olds. How is this going to go any other way?
Well, we've gotten away from meritocracy.
Yes.
We've gotten away from earning things. We've gotten into a comfortability. And maybe COVID actually ignited that because of this stay-at-home philosophy that continued because, and it gets back to leadership. I think CEOs, managers should have said, okay, basically COVID's, you got to come back to work. Oh, but we can't, we're so comfortable. I said, you've got to come back to work. I want a collaboration. I want people working together. I found out that your work at home started fine, and then it started to decline. You became too comfortable, less motivated. We, the friend of the jersey again, working together, that's motivation. Productivity declined. You're talking about teachers. When you have tenure, there's not a whole lot can happen, right? Yes. You have a tendency to, and not everybody. I mean, a lot of good teachers, but it's your approach. Is your approach to continue growing, to be the best teacher or to be the best person in whatever it is? I
don't want to cut you off, but I am going to cut you off. Sure. In that, it's not about you're a good person, you're a bad person.
Right.
Take any person and just go, look, you can never be fired from your job. That will turn the person into a bad employee.
Right.
You tell them you can come in, but if you won't, you're not feeling it, and you want to hang out at home, you'll still get paid. That turns you into a bad person. We're all capable of great things, and we're capable of being weak slobs. And it's easy to do. You think all the kids of the rich people who are sort of the trust fund babies are bad people? They're not bad people. You say to a 19-year-old, you don't really ever have to work. You can drive a Ferrari and you can live in Malibu. Yeah, that person's going to get into drugs at some point. They're going to pick up a couple bad habits along the way. the same
And
person.
bad people. People are going to migrate towards them, take advantage of them because they don't understand the difference between good and evil because they've got all the
If
goods.
somebody had gotten hold of me when I was 19 and said, look, you don't have to go on a construction site and dig ditches for $7 an hour. I'll back up a Brinks truck and you can live in a castle. I'd be 700 pounds and dead right now. I got forced into character. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's like we create these people, like when we say to somebody, rent control. Oh, rent control sounds great. We'll have the folks that aren't as fortunate living in dignity in whatever place. I know people have been renting for 30 years because they got rent control.
Yeah.
They should have bought a house by now, but they got such a good rent control deal, their motivation has been removed.
Comfortable, right? No motivation.
Comfortable,
to change.
no motivation. So my kids aren't bad kids, but during COVID, when they were told just stay home, the next thing you know, I'd be knocking on the door on a Tuesday at noon. Oh, Dad, I've slept in. Yeah, of course. You're not setting your alarm. You don't have to get up. You don't have to go anywhere. It took somebody who is not bad and made them bad. And I don't mean bad morally. I just mean it took habits that we all have living inside of us as a lazy person who wants to stay home and get paid to not leave the house. And it flushed it out of us.
And becomes habit forming, right? Especially with young people who are not driven every day.
Yes.
And that's why you've got to get up in the morning and make your bed.
And now we're getting back to diet and exercise.
Right.
And so what I've sort of said about what all these people are trying is it's not going to work. It never works. There's no version of it that works. And they have some sort of version in their head that works. And the analogy I've used in the past, but I'll tell you because I'm a car guy and I like it, which is if you go to Leno's shop about 4 miles from here as the crow flies, he has one of the only Chrysler turbine cars in existence. It's, 1963. They crushed the other ones. They made a handful. He's got one. They just rebuilt the engine, by the way. Oh, the same guys who built the engine in the 60s.
Really?
Some of them still around. Sent
That's
back to like
impressive.
Dearborn.
That's great. Yeah.
Jay loves it. 95-year-old guy building him a turbine engine. Oh, there it is. All right.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
63, Joe, 64, some 62.
They call that sweet. Huh?
Yeah, it's the rocket age, the
63.
space. 63. What do I know? All right, 63. We thought this is progress, man. Chrysler was like, this car, we're in the jet age now. We need a jet age car. Now, internal combustion engine, that's Henry Ford. That's Model T.
Right.
That's, 1907. That's your grandpa's car. This is the Jetsons car. So they made a turbine car, and it didn't work. It ran too hot, unreliable, for a million reasons.
Bad combination.
It just didn't work.
Right.
It just didn't work. And so what did work is the same thing you drove here in, which is the same thing Henry Ford, or probably Mercedes made in 1891. A piston, rods, crank, head, valves. That's it. The
Works.
boringest stuff in the world.
Right.
The internal combustion engine has not changed practically since it was invented, 130 years ago. It's the same thing, right? Now, what we have is a bunch of politicians going, look, we don't want this boring internal combustion engine. What we want, and we get that the turbine car didn't work. We got a new version of the turbine car. We got our own take on the turbine car. That Bernie Sanders doesn't like communism. He's got a better version of communism.
Marxism.
Yeah, and I'm like, hey, you old coot, you don't. I know you're bored by the internal combustion engine. That's the one that works. That's what we got to get back to. And it's diet and exercise. And I'm sorry. And they go, but what about the future? What about the turbine car? It's like, I wish the turbine car worked. I really do. I wish it worked that way. It doesn't work. That's the problem. And just because you have some vision or new take on it doesn't mean it's ever going to work. I wish we could get rid of all the policemen and get rid of the prisons and put the community ambassadors in. I wish that worked. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's the turbine car.
Right. Amen. You're preaching to the choir.
I know.
But, and you're talking about, we're talking about self-motivation, and we're talking about external motivation. But this country has never been better, and like we started in this conversation, is when we, the people, realize that we need to come together. We need to have that civility amongst us, and we need to keep reaching. When we feel comfortable is when you're actually going backwards. You take your foot off the gas, and what happens?
Yeah, roll backwards.
Right? You start to go backwards.
Well, I wonder, also, you have the luxury and the privilege of having this base of sports, which is, and I have the base of sports as well, obviously didn't achieve what you achieved, but the work was done.
Yeah, you get it.
I started playing Pop Warner football when I was 7. And I'm the only person I know that played 7 years of Pop Warner football. I played as much Pop Warner football as mathematically possible. And then I played.
Kept cheating on your birth certificate.
I was 11 for 7
Until you
years.
got to be 6 foot.
Like the Dominican pitcher in Little League.
That's right.
No, I started with farm, went to Gremlins, went to Mighty Mites, went to Tiny Mites, went to Pee Wee, went to Bantam, and then went to high school. All I did was play football, and all I did was get yelled at by guys in windbreakers and bike shorts, not cycling shorts, bike the company.
That's right.
These guys had such guts on them, they had to have 2 snaps in the front. And I learned
remember Sandsabelt slacks that had the rubber belt that really was a great boom to guys that were overweight in the middle.
I learned everything I needed to learn about life just playing Pop Warner football.
Yeah, sure.
Really, honestly. You have that base. Yeah. And other people don't have that base. Mm-hmm. And not only do they not have that base, we've been fighting for them not to get that base. I talked to my own daughter playing volleyball. I talked to her boyfriend that was playing football. I said, "You're not playing football this year. Why not?" I said, "The coach is mean." I said, "All coaches are mean. What are you talking about?" He said, "He's mean. I don't like him. It's not fun." My daughter's a very good volleyball player. I said, "Not playing. The coach is mean." I said, "That's what coaches do. They tell you what you're doing wrong, and then they yell at you."
The better you do, the nicer they're going to be too. Right?
Yes.
You ever found out? You ever yell at the really good players?
Right.
No, it's always favoritism. Go out and show them.
How do we get back to that? How do we graft that on? Is there also some kind of Peace Corps or Work Corps or something that every 18-year-old male especially could do for a year to just get back to basics?
Well, we talked about this small country, Israel. It's so small and under constant attack, whether doesn't have to be a war. But everyone registers at 18 for the military. They go through the process of preparing. They could be reservists. They could enter, especially now. When we were over there, I was talking to 18, 19, 20-year-olds who were responsible in intelligence. They were at peacekeeping on the border of Lebanon. They were doing high-profile jobs at a young age because they felt a sense of responsibility to Israel, the country. Just think if you said in the United States at 18, and obviously it's 350 million people compared to 9, that you've got to register, and for 18 months to 2 years, you're going to get deprogrammed into this malaise of a life that isn't merit-driven. But now your cell phone's going to be taken away. You're going to get discipline again. And it might not be a war, but it's discipline and understanding and being taught, remember, not what to think, but how to think, that this is the greatest country in the world. And we've taken it for granted. And that's why there's this divisiveness between parties and between people. So we got to get back to that civility and get back to a process that allows young people to understand and learn how to do it first. And then let them make decisions based on their dedication to stepping up to the plate every day and taking a swing at it And when you've missed it, take another swing till you hit it because you adjusted. That's what life is all about. And I tell our kids, and Candace and I talk to them, life is about constant adjustments. If you want to find out how good you are, then you don't just fail and not get up again. You get up and make an adjustment, make another one. Now you move forward. Right? This is what life's all about. And like you said, this is a great subject you mentioned about the opportunity for people to stay at home, manage their own time, do their own thing, and to think that they can be as productive as they are in an environment that nurtures productivity, that nurtures advancement. I've always said, there's a difference between the entrepreneur and the intrapreneur. The intrapreneur is what drives companies to be great because they're thinking about ways of making the company better, the product better. Where when you're sitting at home, you're thinking more about yourself. Again, more about the back of the jersey instead of the front of the jersey.
I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up how much I hate Adam Schiff, who you're running against, who weirdly, I really feel this way about California. Adam Schiff is my representative, which is insane. But I feel this way. I feel like Gavin Newsom and Adam Schiff and Karen Bass, I feel like every Monday at 9 a.m. they have a meeting and they go, let's talk about policy.
A Zoom call?
They have a Zoom call and they go, okay, what policy are we talking about? Well, whatever would piss Adam Carolla off the most, whatever sounds the craziest, whatever he would disagree with the most, that's what we're going to do. It was the idea that Adam Schiff there are guys that are sort of middle of the road. There are guys on the Democrats. So I sort of kind of agree with that guy. Or he makes sense when he's for school choice or something. I kind of agree with that guy or whatever. Fetterman, who sort of got sane in the last.
Just saw him the other day in Israel.
Oh, really? In Israel? Fetterman, I go, well, I don't know who this guy was 6 months ago, but okay, he's a Democrat. I kind of agree with what he's saying on a few subjects. So be it. Adam Schiff is not that guy. He's the guy who was on CNN every 15 minutes all throughout Russian collusion, lying every single day. All he did was lie. And I like to play a little game called Stupid or Liar. Because at a certain point, it's one or the other. You're either stupid or you're lying, and he's not stupid because I've heard him speak in Mark Garagos's backyard a million years ago for some fundraising thing. But I don't know. Do we have any of Chip? He literally just sat there and lied the entire Russian collusion story. That's all he did was lie the entire time. And now people are like, well, let's hear what else he has to say. It's like, I don't know. At what point do you lose your speaking privileges? But we put together a little montage, so we'll play it for you.
But you admit all you have right now is a circumstantial case.
Actually, no, Chuck. I can tell you that the case is more than that, and I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now. So, again, I think...
So you have seen direct evidence of collusion?
I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial and is very much worthy of investigation. So
there has been a report from CNN that Wednesday night that the FBI was looking into collusion with the Russians in the Trump campaign in terms of spreading information about Hillary Clinton's campaign. Do you have any information to back that up?
I'm not sure that I can comment on that. I can say that I think that the investigation that the director talked about at our Monday hearing is justified. I think there is a sufficient basis for that investigation, not only to have been initiated, but for it to continue at this point. And I don't have a concern with other members characterizing the evidence as they have, and many of them have said they think there's no evidence of collusion. My disagreement with those members is I don't think that's accurate, and I feel an obligation to say so. So they can call it a fishing expedition, they can call it a witch hunt, it's all an aligned message with the White House, but nonetheless, real evidence is coming forward that just can't be ignored. Right. So we do know a lot more. I think the claims that there was...
It's nothing but him lying about something that was super destructive to this country. And he just looked down the camera and he just lied. He just lied the entire time. I don't know what he thought he had. And by the way, shame on CNN, and I get what CNN's business model is, but if there's a guy who comes on if I came on CNN every day and I was like, look, there's UFOs and I got the proof. And they said, where's the proof? And I said, it's in my car. I didn't bring it with me to the studio, but next week, it's going to be good. And then you went, so you have information that says the UFOs are real. And I went, yep. And then they went, what kind of information? I go, can't talk about it right now. Can't talk about it right now, but I'll be back. Well, at a certain point, as far as CNN goes, at some point when the person never brings any information in or any evidence in, at a certain point, don't you not have to have him back? That's all CNN. At some point, you have to hit a saturation level with a liar
over again,
who's just saying the same thing for 4 years.
This is all about power. These people are running for power and ultimately money. And that's why I entered the race. I don't need money. I don't need power.
Well, yeah, you made $8,000 a year as a Dodger. Come on, you're rolling
I invested
clover.
it well in what was it? There's a difference between running for power and running for the people. And the currency you and I have talked about, and I've experienced in the state with the people, is the reason I'm standing up at 75. The reason for me getting up every day, making my side of the bed. Candace makes the other side. And thinking that this narrow path, if I can accomplish this, shock the country, the most difficult seat to run as a moderate in this country, if I can beat my opponent, I will now be another voice that has ignited people to stand up and say they're mad as hell, they're not going to take it anymore. But once people realize that and don't vote ideologically down party lines and are willing to, for once, do the right thing and vote for somebody that really cares about them. That's how change happens.
Well, that, my friend, is a powerful note to go out on. I'm trying to think, should send people where if they'd like to find out information or get involved with the campaign?
SteveGarvey.com.
SteveGarvey.com. Steve, I'm so glad we've gotten a chance to spend some time together.
Finally. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
And it's such a joy running into you when I run into you. I grew up a big fan of living in L.A., of course, watching the Dodgers and the infield, and back when the band would stay together for a few seasons, you know?
That's what people miss. Remember we were together 10 and a half years, the one group, the infield 8.5. I mean, back when you could do that, and God bless America, I mean, the economics changed and so forth, but that we were together to show what a true team that's selfless can do over that. We were going to World Series every other year, the great trilogy with the Yankees, the number of All-Stars, the great rivalry with the Giants and with the Reds.
Wait a minute.
That's what it's all about.
Wait a minute. When Reggie Jackson famously did the butt hump move, when they got him in a rundown.
Should have been banned from baseball. He purposely did that to deflect the ball. They end up winning, ultimately.
Obviously, it was a rundown between first and second, right?
No, it was a little short liner towards second. Reggie was on first, and he didn't know whether Russell was going to catch it.
Right.
But Billy short hopped it.
Right.
So Reggie froze, Billy touched the bag, and then threw over a little sidearm.
To you.
And it was going to be the completion of a double play.
Right.
And I go out to get it, and Reggie sticks his hip and moves in front of it, and now the ball's gone. It's
right.
Like, where'd
but
it
you're
go?
playing first in that play.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the umpire, and I'm pointing at him. He just purposely obstructed the ball coming to me.
Right.
And I looked around, and fortunately the stands were close to Yankee Stadium. I go get it. And it turns out to be second and third, and Munson scores and wins the game. And now, in one of my more animated moments, I'm saying to Frank Pulley, the umpire, Frank, he obstructed the play. It's clear he obstructed. But he was down the first base line looking in because he couldn't see the movement towards him. Mm-hmm. So now Lasorda comes out, and he's spitting tobacco, and he holds me, and I wasn't going to go too far on this. But I said to myself, I know who saw this. Second base umpire. It turned out to be Frank Pulley was a National League. He's in American League. And I go over and I say to him, you had to have seen it. You're standing here. He says, no, I just, I was looking at the bag, and I see, you told me once he stepped on the bag, you stared at the bag. Mm-hmm. And if you ever see the classic replay of the game, you'll see from center field camera that he's looking all the way and seeing the ball deflect off the hip. And he said, no, I didn't say that. I'm thinking to myself, he's an American League umpire. He's not going to call the obstruction on this. He's got to come back to Yankee Stadium again a lot.
Right.
So that was the big play. Good memory.
Lost the game, lost the series?
Yeah, lost the series.
Yeah, Reggie Jackson was trapped, like in a almost a rundown, and he just flexed his buttocks a little bit and knocked the ball out, and it would have been a double play and ended the inning.
Yeah, would have ended the inning, the rally, and we would have gone and taken I think it was a 2-1 lead, and then you got momentum. You win the first game at Yankee Stadium. You know you're going back home, and pretty sure
78, 79,
78,
78. I was pretty upset about that.
Yeah, me too. It cost me all of, I think, a $30,000 World Series check, which now they're up to $350,000, $400,000 individual check for a World Series.
Oh, Steve. Yeah, it was a crazy play. Those of you can go sort of look it up, but it's clear. And look, we'll look at it because now it's right. Now, I don't, you're being harsh on Reggie Jackson.
No, I'm not.
You said he should be banned?
Oh, sure. It's a little exaggerated, but at least kicked out of the game. Watch this. See the hip? Right there, he's merely moving. Now I'm reaching; it's gone.
Yeah, he doesn't get out. He doesn't
get
out
yelling,
of the way.
And I figure I better get the ball. Where is it? And I pick it up and bring it in.
Well, he doesn't get out of the way. Certainly, he does not attempt to get out of the way of the ball because he.
You want to clean your glasses?
No.
They're a little fuzzy. He's moving. He's absolutely.
All right, let's see. Well, no, you can't. You got to start it from a little further back. Sorry, the ball. Russell picks it up, touches the bag, makes the throw. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. Oh, look.
You know what? It's not quite as much as when you see it from the outfield camera coming in.
Okay, but look, the point is he knew what he was doing, and I don't know. I mean, I guess you can argue. Do you want him as a teammate?
Forgiveness is a mighty tool. It's one of the great virtues of life.
Listen, I'm not a huge Reggie Jackson fan,
if this would have been the seventh, it would have been in the ninth inning, of the seventh game. It would have taken me longer, but he was a tremendous player and a dear friend. And I do this thing called The Way We Were, and I'll do a one-on-one with Jackson Rose and these guys in an amphitheater. And finally, about 5 years ago, he admitted, finally. So we recreated it. And you should have seen 500 people are laughing and they're doing videos and we're hamming it up. But that's what baseball's used to be about, right? It's the bannering and the times and the getting together. And now it's, and again, God bless America, the money, the cable television, now gambling is kicking in and supply and demand and talent. But The Way We Were was a time when it was more of a respectfulness, more of a collaboration, more of a promotion of the game for the sake of the game, of reverence to those players that played before us, the Aarons and the Mantles and so forth. So we've got to get back to maybe, let's take a deeper dive into history and why this country is great, and especially teach our children that. Get back to teaching civics, get back to teaching natural history along with what made this country great, like I said.
Well, from your mouth to God's ears. SteveGarvey.com is where you go. And until next time, Sam Carolla for Steve Garvey saying mahalo.